The unexpected guardian Julian Reed wiped dust from his weathered face as he trudged through the crowded market on Proxima Station. At 52, the former Earth Defense Fleet commander had hoped retirement on this backwater outpost would bring peace. Instead, it brought boredom and memories he'd rather forget. His German Shepherd. Ranger padded faithfully at his side, the dog's instincts still sharp despite the gray around his muzzle. Julian had saved the animal during his last mission. Now they saved each other from loneliness. A commotion erupted ahead. Angry shouts and the unmistakable sound of something being struck repeatedly. Ranger growled low, ears forward. "Easy, boy," Julian muttered, though his own body had tensed instinctively. Rounding a corner, he stopped cold. A corpulent alien merchant was beating a slender female figure, cowering on the ground. Through tattered rags, Julian could see her skin had a soft violet hue, now marred by bruises and dirt. Worthless. The merchant bellowed in broken standard. No speak, no work, waste of food. Before Julian could process what he was doing, he had crossed the distance between them. "That's enough," he said, his voice carrying the quiet authority that had once commanded starships. The merchant turned, revealing a face dominated by 3 blinking eyes. "Human wants something." "I have many fine, I want you to stop beating her," Julian interrupted. The merchant kicked the female again, causing her to whimper. "This just slave. Mute slave. Stupid and useless." Ranger barked sharply, hackles raised. The merchant eyed the dog nervously, then looked back at Julian with a calculating expression. "You want mute slave? Take her. 10 credits. 5, Julian countered automatically, disgusted with himself for haggling over a sentient being. 5, and I don't report you to the sector authorities for slave trafficking." The merchant's face contorted with rage, then settled into a sly grin. 5 credits. Human takes worthless slave. Good deal for me. Julian transferred the credits, then knelt beside the alien female. She was trembling, eyes downcast. Up close, he could see that beneath the grime and bruises her features were delicate and almost ethereal with high cheekbones and almond-shaped eyes. "Hey," he said softly, extending his hand. "You're safe now. I'm not going to hurt you." Her head snapped up, revealing eyes of deep indigo that widened in unmistakable terror. She looked past him, focusing on something in the distance. And then did the impossible. The mute slave opened her mouth and screamed, "Run!" Julian whirled around. At the edge of the marketplace stood a group of heavily armed figures in crimson armor. Even at this distance, he recognized the insignia of the Crimson Syndicate, the most feared criminal organization in the sector. The merchant's laughter rang out. "Stupid human. She not mute? She valuable? Worth 1,000 credits, not 5. Julian didn't hesitate. He scooped the alien female into his arms. She weighed almost nothing and bolted in the opposite direction. Ranger racing alongside them. "My ship's not far," he told her as they ran. "Can you hold on?" She nodded, her arms tightening around his neck. Behind them, angry shouts and the distinctive whine of energy weapons being primed echoed through the market. "I'm Julian Reed," he gasped as they ducked between stalls. "The furry gentleman is Ranger." "Nishera," she whispered, her voice like wind through crystal. "Of the Zintari people. They use us for our mines." The chase had begun, and with it, something neither of them could have foreseen. Flight through the asteroid field they're spreading out, Nishara whispered against Julian's ear, her breath warm and tinged with an unfamiliar sweet scent. 3 squads. Standard search pattern. Julian glanced at her in surprise. "You know their tactics?" She nodded grimly. "I was their property for 2 cycles." A burst of energy fire scorched the tent fabric beside them. Julian ducked lower, sheltering Nishera with his broad shoulders as he picked up speed. "Ranger, find cover," he commanded. The shepherd immediately darted toward a low-hanging awning. Julian followed, pressing against a stack of crates that smelled strongly of fermented fruit. "How did you escape?" Julian asked, still holding her protectively. "I saw a chance, a rare convergence of possibilities, and took it." Her indigo eyes met his. "Just as I saw you in the market today, you knew I would help you?" I saw the possibility. Many paths led to my death today, but the brightest thread led to you. Her hand tentatively touched his arm. Thank you for following it. Ranger's ears suddenly perked up, and he emitted a low warning growl. They're close, Nishara whispered. Julian assessed their options. My ship is docked in Bay 12. We need a distraction. The merchant who sold McGurdick deals and stolen tech. 2 stalls back, there's a crate of unstable power cells. Julian raised an eyebrow. How convenient, not convenience. Probability. A mischievous glint appeared in her eyes. I may have nudged certain possibilities while in captivity. For the first time in years, Julian felt a genuine smile tug at his lips. Remind me never to play cards with you. He whistled softly to Ranger, who immediately returned to his side. Stay with Nishara. Protect. The dog positioned himself beside the alien woman, his intelligent eyes fixed on her as if memorizing her scent and appearance. Julian crept back, keeping low. With practiced efficiency, he rigged 2 cells to overload, setting them to detonate in 30 seconds. The explosion wasn't massive, but in the confined space of the market, it created perfect chaos. Aliens of all species scattered in panic, stalls collapsed, and merchandise went flying. They emerged from hiding, blending with the fleeing crowd. Julian kept his head down, using the panicked market-goers as cover, while Ranger forged a path toward the spaceport. They won't give up, Nishara said, her lips close to his ear as he carried her. I'm too valuable. Neither will I, Julian replied with grim determination. His ship. The Novadon sat waiting in Bay 12. Once inside, he set Nishara down gently in the co-pilot seat. Can you fly? He asked, already flipping switches to initiate the launch sequence. I can navigate, she replied. Her slender fingers, hovering intuitively over the unfamiliar controls, they rose steadily through the station's docking area. But sensors immediately blared a warning. For Syndicate ships had taken up blockade positions.
Ow!
Damn, Julian muttered. Checking the tactical display, Nishira pointed to the dense asteroid field orbiting the system's second planet. There, it's our best chance. Julian adjusted course, keeping the ship's energy signature as low as possible. They've spotted us, Julian announced. Pushing the engines to full power, they're launching fighters, Nishara reported. The first shots streaked past their hull as Julian began evasive maneuvers. They plunged into the asteroid field, massive rocks tumbling chaotically around them. Left. Hard left, Nishara suddenly gasped. Julian didn't hesitate, yanking the controls. A massive asteroid hurtled through the space they had occupied a split second earlier. They fell into a rhythm. Julian handling the flying while Nishara called out warnings seconds before dangers materialized. Together, they might just survive this. A plan takes shape. 6 hours had passed since their escape through the asteroid field. The Nova Dawn hummed steadily as it carved its path through hyperspace. Heading toward the outer rim territories where the Syndicate's influence was weaker, Julian watched Nishara sleep in his quarters. Her platinum hair fanned across his pillow, her chest rising and falling with each peaceful breath. He'd carried her there after she'd collapsed from exhaustion. The strain of using her abilities so intensely taking its toll. When she finally stirred, her indigo eyes found him immediately. How long was I out? Long enough for me to worry, he replied, offering her water. You pushed yourself too hard back there. She accepted the water gratefully. A necessary risk. Julian leaned forward. Tom, you told me exactly what we're dealing with. Not just what they want from you, but what they're doing with your people. Nishara drew the thin blanket around her shoulders. The Crimson Syndicate discovered my homeworld 3 cycles ago. The Zentari were a peaceful race with no weapons, no defenses. Our precognitive abilities were used only for harmony, to avoid natural disasters and guide our society. Pain crossed her features. The Syndicate saw only profit. They slaughtered those who resisted and enslaved the rest. Using our abilities to plan their operations, anticipate security measures, predict market fluctuations for their smuggling empire. And you were particularly valuable, Julian prompted. Nishara nodded. My gift is stronger than most. I can see further with greater clarity. Her voice broke. They made me help plan raids on civilian transports. People died because of what I saw. Julian moved to sit beside her, his weathered hand covering hers. You were a prisoner, a slave. The blood is on their hands, not yours. You don't understand, she whispered. The Syndicate's operations have expanded dramatically because of us. They're planning something massive that will destabilize the entire sector. How many of your people do they have? Hundreds. We're kept separate, used like tools. Her fingers tightened around his. Julian, we can't just run. They'll never stop hunting me. And even if we escape, my people will continue to suffer. The determination in her voice reminded him of comrades he'd served with. Brave souls who refused to surrender to injustice. What are you suggesting? That we take on the entire Crimson Syndicate ourselves? He shook his head. I'm just one retired soldier with an outdated ship. You're human, she said, as if that explained everything. Your species does the impossible regularly. We're stubborn. I'll give you that. It's more than stubbornness. Nishara's hand moved to his face. Her touch feather-light as she traced the lines at the corner of his eye. Humans possess something unique, an adaptability, a drive that other species lack. Where others see insurmountable odds, you see challenges to overcome. The admiration in her voice warmed something in Julian that had been cold for too long. Her face was close to his now, those indigo eyes studying him with an intensity that made his heart beat faster. There's a Syndicate command center, she continued, her voice softer. On Helios Prime, that's where they coordinate their operations, where they keep their records. If we could access those files, expose their operations to the Galactic Alliance? That's suicide, Julian said, but without conviction. Part of him, the part that had led troops into battle against impossible odds, was already calculating angles, considering approaches. Perhaps her lips curved into a smile. But I've seen possibilities where we succeed. When their lips met, it felt inevitable. Her skin was cooler than a human's, but her mouth was warm. Julian pulled her closer, his strong arms encircling her slender form as the kiss deepened. The plan could wait. For now, this moment was all that mattered. Infiltration and discovery of the command center on Helios Prime loomed before them. Its stark architecture a testament to the Syndicate's power and arrogance. Julian and Nishara crouched behind a ridge overlooking the facility, studying the patrol patterns and security measures. 2 weeks had passed since their decision to fight back. 2 weeks of planning, preparing, and growing closer. Julian had contacted former military colleagues, gathering intelligence and equipment. Nishara had pushed her abilities to their limit, mapping possible futures to find their best path forward. The southeastern entrance has the fewest possible detection scenarios, she whispered, her fingers intertwined with his. If we move in 23 minutes, we'll have an 8-minute window while the security systems recalibrate. Julian nodded, checking the pulse rifle he'd acquired from a former comrade. He'd also procured maintenance worker uniforms that should get them past initial scrutiny. Remember, he said, our priority is the central database. We get in, download the evidence, plant the transmitter, and get out. No heroics. Nishara smiled faintly. Says the hero. I'm no hero, Julian replied. Just stubborn, remember? She touched his face, her indigo eyes serious. Your future glows brighter than you know, Julian Reed. 23 minutes later, they made their move. The maintenance uniforms worked as planned, getting them through the outer perimeter. Nishara's precognitive guidance allowed them to avoid patrols and security cameras with uncanny precision. 2 guards approaching from the left corridor, she whispered as they neared the central data hub. Wait 3 seconds, then proceed. Julian counted silently, then moved forward. Their timing was perfect. They slipped into the data center undetected. I'll access the system, Julian said, moving to a terminal. Keep watch. His fingers flew over the interface as he bypassed security protocols using codes from his intelligence sources. The database opened before him, revealing the full extent of the Syndicate's operations, weapons smuggling, slave trading, political assassinations, and plans for coordinated attacks on civilian targets throughout the sector. Got it, Julian muttered, downloading the evidence to a secure drive. Now for the transmitter, Julian. Nishara's voice was tight with sudden fear. Something's changed. The futures are shifting. A slow clapping sound echoed through the room. They turned to see a tall figure step from the shadows, a human male, in an immaculate crimson uniform, adorned with syndicate insignia. "Commander Reed," the man said smoothly. "Your reputation for boldness was not exaggerated. I'm Director Vance. I oversee our Special Assets Division." Julian moved protectively in front of Nishara. "How did you know we were coming?" Vance smiled coldly. "You're not the only one with a precognitive on your side. Though I must say your Zentari is quite exceptional. We've missed her talents." Nishara gasped softly. "Telvaran. You're using Telvaran." "Your brother has been most cooperative," Vance confirmed. "Though not as gifted as you, he's proven adequate for tracking purposes." Julian felt Nishara, trembling beside him. "You told me your brother was killed during the invasion," he whispered. "I believed he was," she replied, anguish in her voice. "I saw his death." "Manufactured vision," Vance explained. "We become quite adept at manipulating what our precognitives see when necessary." Julian's mind raced. The plan had failed, but perhaps there was another way. He subtly pressed the transmitter's activation switch in his pocket. "What happens now?" he asked, buying time. "Now." Vance raised an eyebrow. "Now you'll join our collection of assets, Commander. A military strategist of your caliber, working alongside our precognitives. Imagine the possibilities, and if I refuse, then your death will motivate your companion's cooperation." Vance smiled. "She's grown quite attached to you, after all." Julian glanced at Nishara, seeing in her eyes that Vance spoke the truth. "There's always another option," Julian said, and lunged. Freedom and future, the transmitter. Julian had activated wasn't just sending data to the Galactic Alliance, it was broadcasting the entire database to every communication channel in the sector. Even as he tackled Vance to the ground, screens throughout the facility began flashing with exposed syndicate operations. Alarms blared as the command center descended into chaos. Guards rushed to contain the situation. But it was too late. The syndicate's secrets were spreading across the galaxy. Julian struggled with Vance, Director proving surprisingly strong for a bureaucrat. A vicious blow to Julian's ribs sent him staggering back, giving Vance time to draw his sidearm. "You've ruined everything," Vance snarled, aiming at Julian's chest. Before he could fire, Nishara threw herself forward, not in defense but in attack. For the first time, Julian saw the fury of a Zentari unleashed. Her hands glowed with a strange energy as she touched Vance's temples. "See everything you've done?" she hissed. "Every pain, every death, every future destroyed." Vance screamed, collapsing to his knees as Nishara forced visions into his mind, not of the future, but of the consequences of his past actions. "We need to move," Julian said, pulling her away from the now catonic director. "Your brother, do you know where they'd keep him?" Nishara nodded, her eyes unfocused as she searched possible futures. Sub-level 3. This way. They fought their way down, Julian's military training and Nishara's precognitive abilities, making them a formidable pair. When they reached the holding cells, they found not just Telvaran, but dozens of Zentari captives. "Sister?" Telvaran stared in disbelief as Julian deactivated the cell barriers. The male Zentari was gaunt, his once vibrant violet skin pallid. But his indigo eyes, so like Nishara's, sparked with renewed hope. "I saw you die," she whispered, embracing him. "They showed me what they wanted me to see," he replied. "As they showed you, the prisoners freed and the facility in disarray, they made their escape." Galactic Alliance forces, responding to the transmitted evidence, arrived just as they reached the surface. 3 months later, Julian stood on the observation deck of the Alliance flagship. Watching as Nishara addressed the Council, the Syndicate had been dismantled, its leaders arrested, its operations destroyed. The Zentari were beginning the long process of rebuilding their civilization with Alliance protection. "They've offered me a position as Zentari representative," Nishara said. Joining him at the viewport after her address concluded, Julian nodded, trying to ignore the tightness in his chest. "Your people need you. It's where you belong, is it?" She turned to face him, those indigo eyes searching his. "I've been exploring possibilities, Julian. So many futures branching outward, and which looks brightest?" He asked softly. "The ones where we're together?" She took his hands in hers. "I don't need to be on my homeworld to help my people. The Alliance has offered you command of a peacekeeping vessel. I could serve as your liaison and advisor." Julian felt something unfurling in his chest, something he'd thought long dead. "Are you sure that's what you want?" "A life among the stars." "A life with you," she corrected, stepping closer. "I've seen 1,000 possible futures, Julian Reed. The ones I want most have you in them." As their lips met again, Julian realized that retirement had never suited him anyway. A new adventure was beginning, one with purpose, meaning, and a companion who saw the best in him when he'd forgotten it was there. Some connections transcend the differences between worlds. Some love stories are written in the stars, and sometimes the brightest future is the one you never saw coming.